Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Innovative Revenue Leader podcast. Today, we're going to talk through insights around agents and no code in B2B revenue, which is all the rage. Everybody's talking about agents, what they mean, how they work. And this will go into that in a little bit more detail and also talk around how executives are thinking about them in companies. So we're going to go through that with a survey that Creatio did with 560 business leaders. With me today to talk about this is John Arnold. He's the head of product marketing and strategic advisory at Creatio. I've worked with John for years. We were together at Forrester. He's a pragmatic B2B thought leader, an industry value consultant, and someone who's worked with executives at many of the world's largest organizations, along with also working with high growth startups. At Creatio, he helps large companies develop and scale no code and agentic CRM strategies. And helps them also drive efficient growth and differentiated customer experience. Prior to Creatio, John was at Forrester, as I previously mentioned. He's worked at a lot of the big firms around how marketing works with Adobe, Demand-Based Full Contact, and Google. So, John, really great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Great to see you again, and we'll have a great conversation, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, let's jump in. We'll have some fun with this. So, what I want to start with is just discussing one of the report's themes. So the theme was agentic AI as a strategy and an executive boardroom priority. So this report is different in terms of a lot of them are focusing on AI, but you're focusing specifically on agents. So yeah. I think we could all agree that AI is a topic of discussion in every single boardroom, but you guys talked about it in a differentiated way where you said 45% of boardrooms are talking specifically around AI agents in general. What does that mean in terms of the process of AI and agents' role in that process for how companies are doing? Like, it's interesting because I think we say 100% are doing it in AI, and then that 45%, like what does that mean in terms of the difference between how a boardroom would talk about AI in general versus agent specific?
Yeah, it's a great question. Let me back up a little bit maybe and just talk about the survey. So when I joined Creatio, we all realized that we have an incredible goldmine of proactive organizational leaders who are willing to try new things. You know, everybody's having to become an AI expert overnight. AI is so new, or at least generative AI and agentic AI is new enough that, you know, everybody's trying to figure it out. And there's nobody who's been doing that for 20 years, you know, so all of these companies that are using agents and no code at Creatio are, in the trenches learning things and trying to be first and they're first movers. So we wanted to get in touch with that vibe and just talk about, how are you using AI and no code and what are these proactive like frame breakers doing who are being innovative and changing their businesses. So that's sort of the spirit of the survey. And we got an incredible response from it. So one of the things that the survey came out to your question is that, AI is no longer a back office experiment. It's really a strategic lever, and it's being discussed at the highest levels, as you can imagine. And some of that is the boardroom sort of coming to the rest of the business and saying, what's your AI strategy? And the business is going to have to come up with that. But with agentic AI specifically, what we found is that there are really two conversations going on. One is around copilots and assistants, and that's sort of what people think agentic AI is. And it just amounts to those chatbots, if you will, that you kind of can ask it a question or maybe ask it to do something for you. And there's a little bit of back and forth between humans and agents. But what we're really talking about is autonomous agents and those assistants, and even agent to agent networks. And so there's some conversations around that are really interesting. And the spirit of that at the board level is that it becomes a financial conversation. So, what do you do when agents can do some of the work that either people or legacy software were doing before? Mm-hmm. And that isn't an easy answer. It's not just, well, you just pocket the savings, you could say, well, I'd like to invest in the human touch. Let's have humans do something different than they were doing before. Or some companies do decide that they want the agents out front and they want the agent experience to lead and the human experience is in the background. So that's a huge strategic decision. And it's one that we help clients make all the time.
Got it. Now, would you say like those 45%, like if you've got a boardroom that's talking agents, that's probably an audience of companies that are more advanced in AI than the general, hey, tell me an AI story and make sure that when I talk to my board members that I can tell a good AI story.
Yeah, I think there may be, at least from a vision perspective, maybe they're more advanced, right? So the fact that they're even considering that one of their top priorities, or they're thinking about autonomous agents as part of their strategy, part of their business strategy, I think makes them more advanced. But clearly, and I'm sure you've seen this in your client base too, that there is a gap between the aspirations that these executives have and the actual willingness and ability to implement some of these agents. And so that's partly because of some legacy software or data, or realities around your infrastructure. It could be because your organization, just from a willingness perspective, is not ready for AI, or they're still confused about it, or they don't like it, or there's people who won't use it or reject it. So there's all kinds of challenges to getting that to work, but clearly there's accountability being passed from the C-suite down to leaders who are being asked to figure it out. And that's the key theme, is that there are a whole lot of executives who need to have an AI strategy. They need to have an AI plan. And when they look at the ROI of some of the different options they have for AI, they fall very quickly into agentic AI, because copilots can only give you so much ROI. But the agents working behind the scenes doing some of the work that, again, either people used to do or legacy software used to do, and if agents can do it better, there's big ROI behind the scenes there.
Yeah, it's interesting because this is a weird dynamic with boardrooms. Now, getting visibility and interest from the boardroom, even investment dollars, is much easier, but connecting what the boardroom thinks they want to what the reality is of what you want to deliver is a lot harder than, be careful what you wish for to a certain degree. Everyone wanted funding for SaaS products and had trouble getting it. Now they're getting funding, but the expectations are so bloated and kind of all over the place. It's hard to connect those dots, and it leads to like really weird decisions and it's to a certain extent bad decisions where you're talking about, I'm showing you I'm doing AI rather than I'm showing you how to get an ROI from it. So it's interesting. Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, it's causing some of those really interesting conversations around how you either deploy people or redeploy people in the world of AI. When it comes to salespeople, for example, we get questions at Creatio all the time from sales leaders who say something like, how can I sell more without hiring more salespeople? Or how can I reduce my headcount because I'm being forced to do that? Can AI make up some of that ground? And then, yeah, you do get a couple of companies who are actually planning to use AI and cut headcount, even though they don't need to do that. There's no business pressure to do that. They just think that's a good idea. Um, but there's a lot of different strategies there, right? So you could also hire more salespeople, but hire very productive salespeople, and that changes the game. You don't have to hire one salesperson per $1 million of quota, or whatever those metrics are. Maybe you can hire one salesperson for every $1.2 million of quota
yeah,
if you use AI effectively. So those kinds of equations and math is happening at the boardroom level.
yeah, it's good because that's needed to change for forever. So
Mm-hmm.
I think some of the behavior, like one of the questions that you asked, I think brought out some of the behavioral changes within different industries. And I think that's since you looked at executives, so you talked about 82% of tech decision makers think agents will be a critical or important will be critical or important to their organization's goals. That makes total sense to me. The part that I want to dig in a little bit on was only 40% of professional services organizations said this to you.
Yeah.
So this is an industry that's been struggling recently. I mean, not all because of AI, but AI kind of is starting to play a role in that. Like, can I do all the professional services? Can I do consulting myself using ChatGPT versus a consulting organization? I'm not sure that's true or any of that, but like later in the report, you talk to the areas that are preventing adoption, and professional services seem to be similar in terms of their challenges or things that are preventing to them, like in the top areas. Like, did you go a layer deeper in that to indicate why professional services was so much lower? Like, they stood out to me like a sore thumb compared to
Yeah.
everybody else. Like it, like why did that happen? And like, could you provide any deeper detail and like, what's keeping that industry from adopting? Is it just like it's existential for me, so I don't want to touch it? Or like, how do you see that?
Yeah, there's a lot of nuance in there. So I'm glad you caught that because it kind of just caught our attention as well. And I think there's two things going on as we work with our partner network and talk to professional services providers. There's sort of two sides to this coin. And on the 40% side, the side that had the low score for adoption of AI, I think a lot of professional services firms were caught off guard by AI and especially copilots when the chat GPTs and the Geminis and the Anthropics of the world started talking about deep research and the ability to do some of those jobs that maybe professional services was doing, and they sort of got really cynical. That some of the marketplace speak was very cynical about, hey, AI can create a PowerPoint deck too, and a strategic model, and it sort of ignored all of the really smart people that have those conversations in the walls of those institutions and come up with great ideas that actually work. So, I think that they have a perspective on it that, AI is not smarter than me. It's a great tool. We can use it. We do use it. But it's not transforming the industry from that perspective. So that's one side of the coin. And I think they're probably right there. It's a tool. It's not really a
For
replacement
sure.
for a consulting institution. But then there's the whole agentic AI side of it and the autonomous AI side of it. And when it comes to that, I'm a little bit surprised that professional services haven't seen the opportunity there. So it's not
Curious.
really about professional services firms adopting AI. It's really about them adopting new ways to help their clients because there's a myriad of problems that professional services can help to solve when it comes to implementing AI agents in organizations, right? Everything from bettering their data layers to helping them decide what to do with legacy software or platforms and other technologies, helping them to construct the agents and to think about how the agents work with other agents or other people, how the agents are going to navigate all of their technology and data objects, governance and security and legal and all of those things. So there's a huge, we think, industry that's going to emerge for professional services firms, but they're going to have to get their hands dirty and do some of this work. I don't think they can just come up with ideas because the AI is really good at that. But they're actually going to have to step in and solve some of these problems to get organizations up and running on AI.
Yeah, so it's like it's that classic change thing, right? Like I mean, people are struggling everywhere to actually get value from AI. Even though they know it's there, they're struggling to do it. So that should be a professional services boom. But if I understand what you're saying, right, it's kind of, well, I don't want to do professional services the way that I need to do it in the future. I want to do professional services the way I did it now. And you're asking me to do this to make this big change to readapt the way that I talk to customers in a world where I have agents and I have AI. And I mean, is that that's the gap that needs to be filled if these scores were going to go, or if this awareness is going to go up?
Yeah. And if they think AI agents aren't going to help them do that, I guess I can see their point, because they have their consulting models and they have their ways of implementing technology, and maybe there's not that much change that needs to happen there. And so the way we asked the question was, are the agents going to be critical to your organization's goals? And I think the way that they interpreted that was for their business, right? So internally in the halls of the company, are they using a lot of AI agents? Yeah, they're using them, but they're not critical. But on the other side, where their clients are using the AI, that's a huge opportunity. And if we asked the question that way, they probably would have said, 100% yes, this is a huge opportunity, and we're going to go get that opportunity.
Got it. Got it. Self-preservation. I can't let an AI agent feel like it's important into my job because I'm the product, and
Yeah.
I mean, it can be my assistant, but it can't be the driver. So let's move into another question. So the report states that 84% of organizations are unlikely to reduce headcount.
Uh,
Is that just wishful thinking? Because like with so much money being poured into AI to drive productivity, an ROI is going to have to happen. So if it's not going to come from headcount savings, where is it going to come from? Because there will be a reckoning for the millions and billions of dollars that are going into these companies to invest in this product. Like, yeah, is this just wishful thinking or someone just trying to say the right thing in a survey? Because the reality of that, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. So got a lot, again, a lot of nuance here, I think, in the conversations. And when people say reduce headcount, that's a tricky one for organizations. Some of the politics there, right? So no one wants to really cut their headcount. Headcount's something you always, as a leader, try to maintain and try to keep it moving forward. So, if you're going to cut headcount, usually it's because of a business reason. You have to cut headcount because your business isn't doing very well, or your C-suite or your finance side of the house has decided there's a better way to do something, and you're going to make that tough decision to emphasize technology and maybe cut some people or some professional services out of the equation. So when all these groups say they're unlikely to reduce headcount, I think what they mean is we don't see people's jobs being eliminated. We see people's jobs changing. And we're going to ask the people to do things maybe that they weren't doing before, to fill in their time that's been saved by some of the AI. But I also think some of that has to do with a lot of people, again, still think that AI is co-pilots and assistants.
Yeah.
And when you add the autonomous agents in, I think the impact on the business from a process perspective is much greater. And maybe they are going to have a lot more time on their hands, so to speak, in the people side of the business. And they're going to have to figure out, do they really mean what they say when they're not going to reduce the headcount? And that means redeploying those people in jobs that maybe they aren't used to doing today, or reskilling them in some areas where they can impact the business in ways that only humans can do it. So I'll give you a couple examples of that, things that we've seen at Creatio. For example, a lot of banking and financial services companies have a lot of back office processes. They process a lot of loan applications, or they collect a lot of information from loan applicants, or they open a lot of credit card accounts, or they open a lot of savings accounts, or they renew a lot of CDs or deposits. There's a lot of paperwork, if you will, involved in some of those motions. And for a lot of banks and credit unions, for example, there's a lot of people who do that. And if AI can automate a lot of those processes, it sort of forces the conversation. Do you want to emphasize the human touch, redeploy those people in more of a customer facing role where they're going to help you do that credit application or that loan application or open that account? And you want to have a human in that transaction because that's how you differentiate. You want it to be a great human experience. And all the while, the background is being taken care of by the autonomous agents. But out front, you've got a smiling human face doing that. And boy, can they do a lot of those, because you used to maybe not be able to do that for small accounts because there's too many of them. Well, now maybe you can, because so much of the work in the background is getting done. So some, financial institutions are going to decide to emphasize the human touch, and maybe they won't reduce headcount. They'll just put those people out front and center. Other organizations might look at that and say, well, we've surveyed our customers and they said they don't really want to talk to a person. They just want their account opened really fast. And the AI agent can do that really well. And if the customer says they don't want to talk to a person, then the AI agent does the job. And then they're going to have to maybe get rid of some people, and they can't use them anymore. And the whole, the mix of people and technology and AI agents and programs kind of all changes around that. So again, big strategic decision. Back to our start of the conversation. That's why it's a boardroom topic. It's not just as simple as saying, I'm going to employ some AI and then, hey, I don't need these people anymore. It really confronts your strategy, and the mix of humans and technology totally changes.
Yeah, it's encouraging to a certain degree, because that's kind of where my head is you should be looking to redeploy. I don't know a single company pre-AI, even during AI, that doesn't have a ton of stuff they're trying to do they can't do because of headcount constraints. So if you're a company that's able to really think through and strategically say, my goal is not to reduce people, my goal is to do all the things I couldn't do before, and then build that's encouraging. Practically, it always seems to end up in headcount. So I'm hoping this age and this change actually leads to something different.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you're right. Like, the long tail of the customer base, for example, oftentimes organizations would outsource that to the partner network, right? Like
yeah,
we don't have enough people to sell to these smaller accounts and the deals are too small. And so we're just going to outsource that. And I think there are some companies who are rethinking those kinds of decisions because they can say, well, wait a second, maybe we can have a person handle these. And a salesperson who used to think that 20 calls a day was a lot, maybe they can do 30 now, and it's
yeah.
not really that much harder.
Yeah, it's a great example. Great example. Okay, so you talk about no code already being mainstream. In the report, it says 67% of people are already using it. I, I think there's a lot of differences in how people perceive no code, from vibe coding to any number of things. You're really focusing on it from the perspective of being able to use no code in an enterprise environment. Can you talk about how, like, what Creatio does that makes things less complex in these complex worlds and allows users to more easily adapt? Like the way you talked about that, like no code in an enterprise environment, I think is your sweet spot. And I think it'd be good to understand the difference between, hey, I'm vibe coding this cool app for that I'm going to use at home versus actually doing no code work in a mainstream enterprise organization, because I think that's very different.
Yeah. Yeah, let me kind of start from the top. So when I talk about Creatio, usually, when I'm on stage at a conference or something like that, and people ask about no code, this is really about the ability to build three things. One is you want to be able to build applications or customize applications, because your business processes and the way that your customers buy from you and the way you sell and the way you market and the way you service your customers shouldn't have to adapt to your software, the way your software works. You should adapt your software to the way you want to sell and you want to do those things. So no code gives you the ability to build and maintain and change applications very easily. And then there's also workflows. So things that automate processes, you want to be able to change those, and you don't want to have to rely on professional developers to maybe want to make changes to those processes. And then the third thing to build is AI agents. So you want to be able to build agents, customize agents. And again, your reliance on professional developers, we think, shouldn't be that those professional developers are doing minor use cases like building a dashboard for a marketing team or
Yeah.
updating some records, right? Or building an application that does something that has some business value to the team, but not to the organization. So when you look at the opportunities that are available to make those customizations and to build those applications, you sort of have, the SaaS, software as a service model, which is, you kind of wait for those updates to happen, and then you get professional developers or partners or professional services to customize the applications for you, and it's a great big effort, and there's a lot of expense around that. And every time the software as a service solution releases a new product, it all gets disrupted, and you have to do it again, and you have to change. And so there's a couple different ways you can handle that. You can go with a pro code or a low code platform, and that helps your developers to do some of that work faster, but it's really for developers, right? So
Yeah.
developers still use those tools. They're still software engineers, and they can speed up that work and get it done faster with pro code or low code. When it comes to no code, it's not that there's no code, right? There's code behind the scenes, but someone who's not a software developer, if they just have technical skills, if they can assemble spreadsheets, or if they have operational skills, or they know how to do some technical things, they can actually build agents, build applications, customize applications. And you can decide as an IT organization how you want to handle that, right? For some IT organizations, they keep it in IT, but they don't have to hire full stack developers for every single use case. And they can
Yeah.
take on more use cases because some junior people with technical skills can handle a lot of the requests that are coming in from the organization, and they do more of that in IT. Other organizations will actually create some sort of a working model where there are no code developers or no code creators on staff, and they don't sit in IT. They're in the business teams, they're in operations, or they're in actually sales, marketing, or service. And they work together with IT either as a center of excellence model or in some cases we call them fusion teams. So you have sort of a couple of developers and a couple of no code creators working together to develop, let's say, marketing dashboards for everyone or something like that. And you also have some cases where their IT is completely enabling the organization to do their own no code development, and they have some guardrails around that, but they essentially, allow citizen developers, if you will, to go out and do their own applications. So the choice is yours. There's a lot of freedom and flexibility in that model, and that's the spirit behind no code versus low code or pro code. It's really about the no code creators.
Yeah, it kind of levels up every person along the chain. So if I'm in operations, I could use the no code to do more than I could before, and so on and so forth, all the way through to a hardcore developer would still be able to do more than they did before.
Exactly. And for some of those use cases, like marketing needs a dashboard. Okay, well, IT traditionally might just say no to that. It's not high enough on the priority list, and then they have an agency do it or something. And now they can say yes to that. And it doesn't just, it's not just for small use cases like that. Sometimes marketing says we need an application that can do all kinds of things around an event, for example. And, the no-code creators can create an entire event management application from scratch, or, take something off the shelf from, let's say, a marketplace developer, or they can take an existing application and customize it.
John, thank you so much for joining. Fantastic insights. I really appreciate you providing more context around the report. Great talking to you.
Absolutely. A pleasure as always, Seth.